Tonight, from runway to tragedy, the chilling footage of a fatal 30-second flight. Hundreds killed, the lone Canadian casualty, and how the sole survivor incredibly walked away from the wreckage.
When he was on the runway, my dad called him that we're going to take off soon.
With the renewed spotlight on Boeing's safety record. Staring down a grim wildfire summer outlook and where it ranks among Canada's worst.
I'm still in the process of processing, if that makes sense.
The shocking takedown of a high-profile U.S. senator while he was handcuffed and dragged out of a press conference. Plus, how police closed in and dealt a major blow to Montreal's Mafia. And reflecting on a beaming history.
We're so used to doing something for 50 years.
A family's lasting labor of love for the oldest surviving lighthouse in Newfoundland.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Todd Vanderhayden.
We begin tonight with breaking news from the Middle East. Israel has launched a series of airstrikes on Iran's nuclear and military sites. It is a dramatic escalation and a long-running conflict between the two countries. Israel has long warned for years that it will not tolerate Iran having nuclear weapons. Iran state media now saying its top general and top nuclear scientists have been killed. Israel is under a state of emergency. Here's more from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program.
Our Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin is joining me now from the U.S. Capitol. All right, Joy, what more do we know here?
Todd, Israel confirming tonight it did carry out those massive strikes as a matter of self-defense. Explosions were heard in the capital and elsewhere, targeting Iran's nuclear program, its nuclear facilities, and other military targets. Israel warned its people tonight to prepare for a counterattack. President Donald Trump was told that these strikes were likely coming, even though he was pushing Prime Minister Netanyahu not to strike. Washington began withdrawing its diplomats and military families in the region, fearing that this could happen, even though the president hoped to negotiate a new deal to stop Tehran from having a nuclear bomb. Trump posting tonight that he is still committed to a diplomatic solution to the nuclear issue. Todd?
And what are we hearing in terms of the Trump administration? I know that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has weighed in here. The Americans saying they were not involved.
Yeah, we do have that statement from Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirming that the U.S. wasn't involved in the strikes and did not assist Israel in any way. Israel did this on its own, taking unilateral action. Marco Rubio goes on to say, Todd, that, and I'm quoting here, Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. In other words, don't come after us. This is a huge escalation in the Middle East, Todd, raising fears of an all-out war.
Absolutely. Our Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin tonight. Thank you, Joy. Turning now to a deadly plane crash in India that killed at least 290 people, including one Canadian. The Boeing jet had just taken off. 30 seconds later, it slammed into a residential neighborhood. One passenger survived. CTV's John Venavali Rao begins our coverage.
Video shows the plane eerily descending just seconds after takeoff, dropping into a residential area, and then a moment of pure horror. A huge fireball sending black smoke billowing into the sky. Rescuers rushing to the site where the Air India jet slammed into a hostel for medical students. So far, recovering the remains of at least 260 people, with it still unclear how many on the ground were killed.
Very tragic and very, very horrific. And even till now, I have to say I'm in a state of shock.
The jet was a 12-year-old Boeing 787 Dreamliner, seen here as it raced down the runway, headed on a flight from Ahmedabad, India, to London, England. Moments after being airborne, this aviation official says the pilots issued an emergency call.
Would appear in the video, from my perspective anyway, that neither engine was developing power. So the aircraft was kind of gliding.
Loaded with fuel ahead of a long flight, the plane exploded on impact. On board 242 passengers and crew, including Indian, British, and Portuguese citizens, and Nirali Patel, a Canadian mother from Toronto who worked as a dentist. Her husband and other family members now headed for India.
I haven't spoke to her husband, but I heard that he's also in very shock and they are all on their way right now as we speak.
One passenger managed to survive, incredibly seen walking away. Bishwash Ramesh from Britain was in seat 11A in the emergency exit row. His brother still missing.
He video called my dad. As he crashed, he said, "Our plane's crashed." All of that. I don't know where my brother is. I don't see any other passengers. I don't know how I'm alive, how I exited the plane.
He told a news outlet he heard a loud noise before the crash. Investigators will now want to retrieve the black boxes, one kept in the tail, which is still intact. Prime Minister Carney says Canadian transport officials have been in close contact with their counterparts as British and American investigators head to India to help determine the cause of the crash. John Valley Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
This is the first plane crash involving a Boeing 787 known as the Dreamliner, although Boeing has had some major issues in the past with other planes. CTV's Adrian Gobriel looks into the safety record.
It's a modern-day aircraft, it's very high-tech, and it's the leading edge of technology.
Air Canada has a total of 40 Boeing 787s. WestJet has 7 in their fleet.
Effectively, they are putting out defective airplanes.
Last year, Boeing engineer Sam Salapour testified before U.S. Congress, where he called for all 787 Dreamliner jets to be grounded immediately, amid claims that there are tiny gaps in the fuselage that could slowly come apart at 35,000 feet.
The company is taking manufacturing shortcuts on the 787 program that may significantly reduce the airplane safety.
Boeing has called the claims surrounding the structural integrity of the 787 inaccurate. Though some Boeing safety issues with its 737 MAX 9 model have been impossible for the company to deny. January 5, 2014, the door panel of an Alaska Airlines plane falls off mid-flight. An investigation reveals the bolts weren't installed. 2 consecutive MAX airline crashes in 2018 and 2019 killed nearly 350 people in total, the problem stemming from a faulty sensor that pushed the aircraft's nose down, with pilots unable to regain control, leading to all MAX jets worldwide being grounded until recently.
It does raise concerns when an incident like that happens, that how can the quality process break down to that extent?
Just last month, the U.S. Justice Department reached a deal to allow Boeing to avoid criminal prosecution for allegedly misleading American regulators about the MAX airliner before those 2 deadly crashes. Here at home, Air Canada has an order in for 18 new 787-10s, which are expected to begin delivery next year. Our questions to Boeing about whether or not they have any safety concerns about the current Dreamliner went unanswered so far today. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, Toronto.
And for the latest live coverage of the crash and the investigation into what happened, you can visit our website, ctvnews.ca. Some shocking scenes in California today, where a Democratic Senator, Alex Padilla, was detained after interrupting a press conference being held by Donald Trump's Homeland Security Secretary. Watch this.
Guys, ready? And sir, hands up, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary.
Padilla is a leading voice in the Senate on immigration. Shoved out of the room, forced to the ground, handcuffed by security. The Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, was in Los Angeles to address the ongoing protests around President Trump's immigration policies. And late tonight, a judge temporarily halting the Trump administration's move to deploy California's National Guards in L.A. The order does not include the Marines and doesn't take effect until tomorrow. Former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien has advice for world leaders on dealing with Trump at next week's G7 summit in Alberta.
He tends to be a bully once in a while, and don't lose your cool when you have a bully in front of you, unless you grab him by the neck, as I had today at one time.
And CTV National News will have full coverage of next week's G7 meeting live from Alberta. The federal jobs minister saying she is using her authority to try and end 18 months of negotiations at Canada Post and put the latest offer to unionized workers for a vote.
We're disappointed and a bit pissed off that the minister again is tipping the scale of justice towards the employer. There's been no reason right from the beginning.
Canada Post asked for this vote. The union says it is an attack on labor rights. Postal workers have been in a legal strike position since the end of May. It's not even officially summer yet, but already this year's wildfire season is on track to be the second worst on record. And as our BC Bureau Chief reports, new data presented today by federal officials comes with a warning for July and August. Here's Andrew Johnson.
In Squamish, between Vancouver and Whistler, wildfire flames have come as close as 100 meters from homes and today smoked out a provincial park.
Campers at Alice Lake were asked to leave the park as of last night just due to the intense smoke conditions that they had.
But a break in the weather is providing fire crews an opportunity to get more aggressive.
We are going to be going full out on this fire to get containment while we have this window.
A familiar fight that's played out across Western Canada this spring. 35,000 square kilometers have already burned, primarily in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. Year to date, 2025 is closely competing with 2023 for the unwanted designation of worst fire season on record.
My heart is with the communities, families, and individuals affected by these wildfires, and please know that Canadians across the country are standing with you. I know you're scared. Our government will continue to do everything that we can to help.
In partnership with several provinces, Ottawa is providing more than $100 million for the Fire Smart program, which helps homeowners and communities reduce risk. Canadians, including thousands of firefighters, are now staring down the peak summer months as federal officials release a new warning looking ahead to July and August.
Wildfire risk across most of Western and Northern Canada is expected to be elevated over the coming months.
Higher than normal heat is predicted this summer right across the country. In the fire-prone West, rain is expected to be below average.
The government modeling shows the highest danger of all heading into the summer is in southern British Columbia, an area that has been left largely untouched in May and June, while the prairies burned. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
In Saskatchewan, thousands of wildfire evacuees are going back home this week. For those from L'Orange and surrounding communities, that happened today. CTV's Alison Bamford is in the northern community speaking with residents and assessing the damage.
This was all retail space.
Scott Robertson drives past here every day.
My desk, what we called the trading desk, was just through that hole.
Staring at the rubble that's been his family business for the last 56 years.
I'm still in the process of processing, if that makes sense.
Flames tore through the iconic Robertson Trading last week, destroying a cultural pillar and popular tourist attraction in L'Orange that housed hundreds of furs, Indigenous artwork, and clothing.
Everybody feels the loss.
The Trading Post and Rona next door are the only two buildings within the northern town to catch fire.
My house still here? My truck?
Communities reopened to about 7,000 residents this morning in the Tri-City area of L'Orange, Air-Ronge, and Lac L'Orange Indian Band.
Well, it's a little bittersweet, but it's awesome to be home.
And it's nice to see that, the town's still here.
Just north of L'Orange, this is all that's left of 4 homes completely leveled by flames at Eagle Point Resort. L'Orange's mayor says even more homes and cabins in neighboring communities were lost, but rainy, cooler weather means the area is out of the woods for now.
There's still going to be fire activity happening. There's choppers still putting things out, and there's activity to the south of us, but we've been reassured that the community will be safe.
Reassurance and relief for those hoping they don't have to leave again at a moment's notice. Alison Bamford, CTV News, L'Orange, Saskatchewan.
Police in Quebec announcing the arrest of Leonardo Rizzuto, the alleged head of the Montreal Mafia. They say it's a major blow to organized crime in the province. CTV's Olivia O'Malley on the operation and the impact.
In the early morning hours, police arrested Leonardo Rizzuto at his Laval home, the alleged head of the Montreal Mafia.
This is a major blow.
The Sûreté du Québec and Montreal police worked together on the 3-year investigation dubbed Project Alliance. 150 officers were involved in raids on several homes, including these ones in Laval. 11 people were arrested and 5 are still being sought by police. Investigators allege those arrested are members of the Italian Mafia, Hells Angels, and criminal street gangs.
The police cut the head of the Sicilian clan of the Mafia.
La Presse organized crime reporter Danielle Reynaud says the operation targets key players: Rizzuto, the youngest son of the late reputed boss Vito Rizzuto, and Stefano Solicito, the alleged co-leader of the Sicilian clan. The Rizzuto family is reputed to be one of the most dominant in the history of the Montreal Mafia, but it has come with opposition. Nick Jr. and Sr. were both gunned down. In 2023, Leonardo was the target of an attempted murder. Police say today's criminal investigation is aimed at solving several murders linked to organized crime.
The police communities, in this case, are joined together to work hard and to give some answers back to the families.
According to Reynaud, police were able to make the arrests thanks to the collaboration of Frédéric Silva, who is a member of the Rizzuto family. Reynaud said Silva himself organized murders for the Mafia, even while behind bars.
He knows who said what. He receives and sends text messages, but not only with the people of the Montreal Mafia, but also from some bikers.
Police are anticipating what could be next, including others taking over as key figures are now in handcuffs. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News, Montreal.
All right, coming up for us.
I think it's surreal every time, but I think, it definitely never gets old.
What it feels like to smash 3 world records in just 5 days. It's almost a wrap now for Crown prosecutors at the trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players. The defense is done. The men have all been accused of sexual assault. They have all entered not guilty pleas. CTV's Heather Wright was in the courtroom in London, Ontario for us.
The Crown says EM was in over her head. Naked in a hotel room with a bunch of hockey players, the complainant in this case initially tried to resist in passive ways, according to the Crown, like refusing to get on the ground because it was dirty. But when a player put a sheet down, EM then went along with what she thinks was expected. Some people will fight or resist, some people will flee, some people will appease. These are normal and predictable responses. Crown Attorney Megan Cunningham is trying to counter the narrative put forward by the defense that EM was a willing and active participant in the sexual activity that took place nearly 7 years ago, and that she changed her story over the years to avoid embarrassment for her actions and to bolster her civil case against Hockey Canada. In their closing submissions, the defense accused EM of being difficult and having an agenda in her testimony, something the Crown pushed back on today. If EM had any agenda while testifying, it was to ensure she was not misunderstood. Megan Cunningham went further, saying the way the defense has characterized the complainant is a key reason why many alleged victims don't come forward. If she's too emotional, she's combative. If she's not emotional enough, she's rehearsed. If she uses the same language over and over, it's contrived. If she uses different language, she's inconsistent. The Crown also accused the players of cooking up the story that it was the complainant asking for sex, not them. Cunningham points to testimony from players Boris Kachuk and Trevor Radish, who both said the complainant was in bed when they arrived to the room and didn't offer or ask for sexual activity. Neither Kachuk nor Radish face any charges.
There has been a lot of back and forth today between the Crown and the judge often interjecting and pushing back on some of the comments made by the Crown. Closing submissions will continue tomorrow. Heather Wright, CTV News, London, Ontario.
All right, still ahead for us.
The more I set, the more I want to break.
What drives Canada's swimming sensation? Canadian swimming superstar Summer McIntosh set 3 world records in 5 days this week. Speaking to CTV News, she believes there is more to come.
The more I set, the more I want to break, I think. And I'm forever chasing that feeling of adrenaline and pure just, bliss and happiness of going these times.
The 18-year-old from Toronto capped her stunning streak at the Canadian swimming trials in Victoria, BC, finishing first in the 400-meter medley and breaking her own record. It's the third time McIntosh has set a new world record at this year's Canadian trials. Pope Leo showed off his favorite team by wearing a Chicago White Sox hat during a public appearance at the Vatican. Well, the Pope is from Chicago, was even seen in the stands back in 2005 at the World Series. While Chicago has two baseball teams, the Pope has definitely chosen a side. And the discovery of a French shipwreck more than 2,500 meters below the surface is being called a time capsule. The 16th century merchant vessel was spotted by the French Navy. Hundreds of ceramic jugs, cannons, other cargo, all remarkably well preserved. The reason the ship sank is still a mystery. Still ahead for us, marking a historic milestone.
It was really a dynasty of lightkeepers over time who were living here.
What North America's easternmost tip is celebrating. That's next. Our country's easternmost point, Cape Spear, is celebrating this year. It's been 50 years now since Parks Canada took over the site and the classic lighthouse in Newfoundland. And to mark the occasion, they are digging into the past. Here's CTV's Garrett Barry.
There's a lot of memories in this place. Jerry Cantwell is the last in a line of 8 Cantwell men to have lived and toiled here at Cape Spear.
Just doing what I was doing anyway, with my father, for my father, and things of that nature. Things never changed for me.
A family dynasty keeping this old lighthouse and its newer replacement until automation made those jobs obsolete in 1997.
You can't stand in the way of electronics. You can't stay in the way of advancement, It's just one of those things that comes with time.
As part of the 50th anniversary celebrations here, the Cantwell family story is being brought back to the forefront for the thousands of visitors that come to Cape Spear every year.
A series of new displays and interactive audio installations will let visitors here hear the Cantwells in their own words.
It was really a dynasty of lightkeepers over time who were living here, and it was a living, breathing family home for them. And so I think a lot of people can really connect to that.
These last months have been time for reflection for Jerry Cantwell, who has been working closely with Parks Canada staff on the project and remembering that big switch to fully automated lighthouses.
The actual change is an amazing thing because you're so used to doing something for 50 years and then all of a sudden you're doing nothing.
Yet still savoring his family's lasting legacy. Garrett Barry, CTV News in Cape Spear, Newfoundland and Labrador.
And that's our show for tonight. Heather Butts is here tomorrow. I'm Todd Vanderheyden. For all of us here at CTV National News, thank you for watching and have a great night.